Hey there, and welcome to That Bond Show, a That Nerdy Site show and the internet's #1 James Bond rewatch show, hosted by two guys named Logan and Trevor. Probably. Join us as each week we dive through a new James Bond movie from Dr. No to No Time to Die. I'm one of your hosts, Logan Wilkinson, and joining me, as always, is my Phoenix son, Trevor Starkey.
It's a ghetto blaster. I
absolutely.
didn't actually take notes as I was watching this one because I was just fresh home off of Disneyland kind of stuff. And,
You just got,
basically, like we grabbed In-N-Out. My parents were kind enough to treat me to In-N-Out on my way home. I sat down, threw it on, and just started watching. I was like, I'm just going to watch this one to watch it, not take notes. But that line definitely stuck out as that's a thing that doesn't hold up very well. But
Yeah, we are, of course, this week talking about The Living Daylights, the 15th James Bond movie, on the 25th anniversary as well of James Bond, released on June 29th of 1987. I was excited to get to this point in the rewatch. We are here. Trevor, you were alive for this one, obviously. We're still in the last two movies. We don't have any memories of them yet. The final two here. But we are out of the Roger Moore era. We can all take a nice little moment to appreciate that fact.
Thank God for that.
Indeed. So running through the cast and crew of this one, we of course have Timothy Dalton as James Bond in his first appearance, who is also a special shout out for me and Trevor as his appearance from Doctor Who, The End of Time, Part 1 and 2. Also, I think it's just because Timothy Dalton is such a weird actor for me, where he's like both split between what he looks like right here and then what he looks like essentially 20 plus years, 25 almost years later when he makes his appearance in Doctor Who when David Tennant leaves. And also him in the
Hot Fuzz.
Thank you. That's what I was exactly trying to pull. The Hot Fuzz.
Like that. And then I think of
things.
him also as
Chuck, right?
Volkov in Chuck. Yeah. He plays like a season arc villain in one of the later seasons of the show.
Yeah, so it's so funny to get to this point and just see him looking so young and so good, right? Because even when we get to License to Kill, I feel like he's not quite the same baby-faced Timothy Dalton as he is here, and he looks so good in this movie.
And as it is, he's 41, I think, right?
41.
Yeah. It's just like we're after 15 years of
60?
Roger Moore.
Yeah, right.
It's like anybody in their early 40s is going to look babyface comparatively.
It will probably not surprise you at all to hear that the single biggest age gap difference between Bonds is happening right now from Roger Moore to Timothy Dalton. That is a 16-year age swing we've just had here to enjoy Timothy Dalton in Living Daylights here. Outside of Timothy Dalton, we have Miriam Diabo as Kara, Joe Don Baker as Bradley Whitaker, making his first appearance in the series. A little trivia tease for you there. We have Jaron Krabi, I'm going to go with, as General Koskov, or Yorgi. Art Malik as Cameron Shaw, John Rhys Davies as General Pushkin, Andres Wisnowski as Narcos. Scroll down so I can get to the rest. Walter Gotel
Necros,
making his...
not Narcos.
Necros, thank you. Walter Gotel making his final appearance as General Gogol, John Terry in a blink and you miss it as Felix Leiter, Desmond Llewellyn returning yet again as Q, Jeffrey Keane is back as Frederick Gray, Caroline Bliss makes her first appearance as Moneypenny, and Robert Brown is back as M, and this is the fourth consecutive film directed by John Glenn. And he's back for more, don't worry, in case you were concerned. In the Blast from the Past section, this film was released the same year as my older brother was born. And on the Trev Watch, Trevor was now 2 years old when this movie came out.
And that was the same year my younger sister was born as well.
There we go, perfect. Oh, that's a fun little one. What month is your younger sister?
April.
She's about 6 months older than my brother. the Boston Celtics and what the Boston Celtics section was going on when the NBA title the year before this, but there was no Bond movie, so I had to give it one last shout out. It would be their last league title for 22 seasons. So all the fun we've had with the Celtics is sadly going to go away for a while. In the highest grossing movie of the year, it was weirdly hard to find. It was either Beverly Hills Cop 2 or 3 Men and a Baby. When I went to the various Wikipedia pages, they gave me two different numbers based off different things. So both are great movies. We will give both a shout out. I didn't realize, and Trevor might know this either, this is a bonus 3 Men and a Baby trivia fact. 3 Men and a Baby was directed by Leonard Nimoy of Star Trek fame, which I definitely never would have guessed, but is a great little tease and fun fact. And Sean Connery won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his performance in The Untouchables. Connery is the first and to date only James Bond actor to win an Oscar. And he's great in that movie if you've never seen Untouchables. In the trivia section, after 12 years and 7 films in the role, Roger Moore left the role of James Bond after the release of A View to a Kill in 1985. He was either fired or quit, depending on if you take Albert Broccoli for his word, but we don't on this podcast, so he left on his own volition. A search was thus undertaken to find a new Bond. The search ultimately came to center on 3 main actors, all of whom were very successful. New Zealander Sam Neill, Irishman Pierce Brosnan, and the Welshman Timothy Dalton, with a trio all competing throughout 1986. Bond producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson were particularly impressed by Neill, and indeed stills of Neill as Bond can still be found across the internet. He looks very good. Ultimately, Albert Broccoli, in typical Albert Broccoli fashion, wasn't sold on him and eventually offered the role to Pierce Brosnan. Brosnan, a boyhood fan of the series, eagerly accepted the role. At the time, Brosnan was lead actor in the NBC television series Remington Steele, which had just been canceled due to fallen ratings. The news that Brosnan would be the new Bond, though, caused a massive increase in interest in the actor, and by extension, his hit TV series, and led NBC with 3 days left on Brosnan's contract to renew the series for a new season. This decision would have dramatic consequences. Upon hearing of all this, Broccoli withdrew the offer to Brosnan, citing he didn't want the character associated with the TV show for completely random reasons. Can't be done. This then led to a big drop in interest in Remington Steele, and only 5 new episodes of the show would be filmed before the series was canceled again. Broccoli infamously uttered the line that Remington Steele would not be James Bond. Neither Broccoli or NBC seemed to give much of a damn for the man at the center of this dispute. Ultimately, Timothy Dalton would be cast at the behest of Dana Broccoli, Cubby Broccoli's wife. We'll get to the rest of it in a second, but I just want to take a deep breath here because I've always found this story to be, nightmarish. And it is just pure a stroke of luck that Pierce Brosnan luckily would come back when Cubby Broccoli was basically dying. And so Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson were in charge of who would be the next Bond by the time of GoldenEye, because Cubby Broccoli is a maniac, as we've gone into the podcast many times. I think we've established that fact. But yes, just can't have it. Can't have a TV actor be James Bond at the same time. It's impossible, Trevor. I don't know if you knew that fact.
I get... I having, no real stakes or history with this, anecdote or whatever, I would get I get from a producer's perspective, not wanting a TV star on a failing sitcom to be, the face of Bond, as long as, that sitcom is still going. It's... I guess I'm trying to think what an analog today would be, but having somebody on the past their prime sitcom be I guess sometimes it can work out, Chris Pratt being Guardians of the Galaxy while still doing Parks and Rec or whatever. But I guess Parks and Rec was wildly beloved and went on for another couple seasons still after that. And
John Krasinski doing The Office and the later seasons while also still doing everything he's done.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe.
So but the 80s was a different time. This was like the rise of the Bruce Willis action star kind of thing. It is like the idea of like Bruce Willis going from moonlighting to Die Hard and being an action star was like ridiculous and unheard of, and like he managed to pull it off, but others might not have been so lucky.
I think this is the year before.
This is basically, maybe? I think Die Hard is 87. I think
87.
So it's basically like this year. I think
same year. Yeah.
Might have been 88, but yeah.
But there we go. The next trivia fact is all about Timothy Dalton. Dalton would
Die Hard was 88. So yeah, like that.
Thank you.
That
hadn't happened yet.
Would have been the exact same kind of scenario where like taking a risk on Bruce Willis for Die Hard was a wild like that was a wild call to make, and having done like if they had done the same here with Brosnan of like, okay, like we like him, but if he's still going to be attached to this, we don't want like the Bond franchise connected to that mediocre TV show that NBC was ready to cut until we offered him Bond.
I think the thing that has always bugged me is the fact that, retracting the offer, right? Like giving him the offer, he accepts. This is like his boyhood dream, and then being like, "Oh, you got this one thing back though. We're gonna take it back." And like, I think the abruptness and curtness, right? Because years later, after he left Bond, like Pierce Brosnan was on some sort of talk show, and like they talked a lot about this incident, and he was like, "Yeah, like it was awful. Like it was like because it all happened in like a 3-day window, right? So like he had got it, he was so elated, and then like got another phone call being like, "Hey, you're not James Bond anymore because of this TV show," basically. And like that was it. Like the manner in which he described the phone call from Albert Broccoli was very much just like curt, dismissive, and he didn't care, and then like just kind of hung up. And I was like, I don't like that. Like if you don't have to withdraw. If you're gonna give the offer, this is a potential thing to happen theoretically, right? Like he's still under contract for a few more days. I just think could have been handled better.
I mean it's definitely like producers swinging their big egos around and like.
And like you said, this is
an actor being hung up. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Timothy Dalton would very publicly seek to take the character in a very different direction from Moore, saying, quote, "Bond's essential quality is that he's a man who lives on the edge. He could get killed at any moment, and that stress and danger factor is reflected in the way he lives. Chain smoking, drinking, fast cars, and women." End quote. With another follow-up quote that I liked a lot. Quote, "I felt it would be wrong to pluck the character out of thin air, or to base him on any of my predecessors' interpretations. Instead, I went to the man who created him, and I was astonished. I read a couple of the books years ago, and I thought I had found them trivial now, but I thoroughly enjoyed every one. It's not just that they've terrific sense of adventure and you get very involved. On those pages, I discovered a Bond I had never seen on the screen. A quite extraordinary man, a man I really wanted to play. A man of contradictions and opposites," end quote. And yes, in doing so, Dalton would very clearly seek to mark a departure from Moore, and it's particularly fun to go watch the old clips of him on the making of documentaries where he's trying to say in the nicest way possible that he hates everything Roger Moore did in the last few movies, and trying to be so polite about it. Like he went about in a very different direction. One of my favorite Moore quotes too, that I didn't include here, but I just kind of know verbatim, is basically along the lines of, James Bond is not a role model. He's not like a hero. He's not someone you should look up to. He is someone who is deeply flawed, and in some ways broken. And he tried to kind of convey that in this role, right? We see the most world-weary Bond we're going to see, with the exception of Daniel Craig, probably, and even Daniel Craig maybe, in Timothy Dalton's 2 movies. And that's what he wanted to play. Someone who is almost more an assassin than he is a spy, and kind of wanted to bring this brokenness to the man, which I really enjoy. This would be the final film appearance in the series for both Geoffrey Keane as Sir Frederick Grey and Walter Gotell as General Gogol. Indeed, Gogol was originally supposed to have a much bigger role, indeed the Pushkin role, but due to Gotell's ill health, his appearance was reduced to a cameo at the end. So you can say farewell to those characters. Other fun fact, extra fun fact in trivia, Geoffrey Keane and Walter Gotell are on the list of Bond actors who make the most appearances in any Bond movie who aren't a like MI6 associated characters. So very fun. And I guess maybe Blofeld probably now if you count the Christopher Watts versions as well. Joe Bradley Baker would go on to join Walter Goldthal.
Not his name at all.
Who?
Joe Bradley Baker. I don't know who that is. Joe Don Baker is Whitaker.
Oh, John. I put the wrong middle name.
You
Joe
put
Don
yeah.
Baker.
You went with like D. Bradley Baker.
Yeah. Joe Don Baker, thank you, Trevor, would go on to join Walter Goldthal and Martine Beswick as actors who appear as different characters in the film series, with obviously Walter Goldthal being Morenzi in From Russia with Love, and then General Gogol. Martine Beswick is one of the girls in the From Russia with Love gypsy fight, and then she's also Paula in Thunderball. That was an extra fun fact.
I mean, there were a few others of those. Who was it? Octopussy had been, somebody else in the earlier one.
Yeah.
And then I think even in this one, there were a couple background characters that were like,
yeah, I'm mainly focused on bigger people. Octopussy got her shout out last week.
Okay.
Or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 episodes ago. This film marks the first appearance of an Aston Martin as Bond's car since On Her Majesty's Secret Service back in 1969. And finally, this film would be the final film in the series to be scored by composer John Barry. So we are officially out of that run of it as well. And that takes us to the 0070-second recap. When I did it earlier today, I clocked this in at 85 seconds. So that is sort of where.
Yeah, sure. I'll take your word for that. I'll go with that.
All right. Bond and fellow agents take part in a training mission that is derailed by a rogue operative who kills a 00 agent and tries to escape. Bond stops him in great fashion. Afterwards, we head to Czechoslovakia, where Bond and Saunders are trying to help General Koskov defect to the west. There's a sniper watching over him who turns out to be the cello player at the opera. Bond stops her, but doesn't kill her before getting Koskov to the west via a pipeline. Necro steals back Koskov after milk bombing a lovely estate home where he is hiding. After Koskov reveals the new KGB head, General Pushkin, is trying to wipe out Western agents. An angry M orders Bond to kill Pushkin. Bond heads back to the east to pick up Kara, the cellist turned sniper, where he learns she's actually a girlfriend of Koskov's. They go to a Ferris wheel, and Saunders reveals more about Koskov and his connection to arms dealer Brad Whitaker before he's killed by Narcos. Whatever, I don't care his name. Bond and Kara go to Tangiers. Bond goes face-to-face with Pushkin, who reveals Koskov was about to be arrested for theft and being an ass, and the two fake Pushkin's death to get closer to Koskov. Wow, I'm rushing this one. Kara reaches out to Koskov, who helps her to drug Bond. Then he takes them to Afghanistan to buy some dope with stolen diamonds. Bond meets Cameron, who is the leader of the Afghan resistance, and the two thwart Koskov's plans. Bond steals the plane full of drugs, gives Necros the boot, and finally confronts Whitaker, who is forced to face his Waterloo. Oh, man. Okay. Trevor, what did I clock in at time-wise?
That was 89 seconds.
Sure.
With the flubs and whatnot.
Yeah. Trevor, how many people were killed?
Okay, so running down as we typically do here through the All Out of Bubblegum stats from alloutofbubblegum.com. This one has a total kill count, the final tally being 42 throughout the film. Of those, James Bond racks up the highest kills with 13. Though I will say, a couple of these, I'm like, I don't necessarily know if I'd attribute those to Bond, but okay, just based on how they do it. So yeah, Bond is attributed with 13 kills. How many of those fall to named characters?
He kills Whitaker at the end. He doesn't kill Koskov. He obviously gets taken away with Pushkin. He kills Necros. So there's 2. And then outside of that, I don't know if there is another named character that he kills, right? Because Whitaker is the only person at his base that he really takes out. He fake kills Pushkin, but obviously doesn't actually. Yeah, I feel like it's actually kind of a low body count for Bond in a lot of ways, other than just like generic henchmen. But even there, it's not too many. I'm gonna say Bond kills 2 named characters.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I don't think the faux double O agent at the beginning has like a name anywhere. Although he is like allotted
Oh
the faux agent kind of title here.
no, yeah,
But yeah, no.
I see what you're
Bond
saying.
forces the Land Rover off a cliff and blows it up, killing the faux double O agent.
Mhm.
Bond sets his Aston Martin to self-destruct, and it blows up two Soviet skiers. Bond flies straight at a Russian plane and only pulls up at the last second, causing the plane to crash and explode, killing the 2 pilots.
But not, yeah, not the
Yeah,
general somehow.
right. Exactly. Yeah. Bond drops Nicholas out of the plane. That's 1 for you.
Mhm.
Then Bond blows up a bridge, killing 6 Soviets and 2 tanks, the driver, the turret operator, and the gunner each. And Bond crushes Whitaker with a bust of the Duke of Wellington for his number 2 kill. So, yep, two named kills throughout this one.
There we go. I'm happy with that. That leaves me at a record of 11 correct and 4 wrong so far. So I'm pretty happy with those odds ultimately. Trevor, what did you think of The Living Daylights?
Oh, it's so good to be out of the Roger Moore era.
Isn't it,
That
dude? Yeah.
that I like that alone was a breath of fresh air.
Mhm.
And then like there might be an element of like flying high off of a fun Disney vacation weekend, coming back home and basically like straight hopping into this. But I really enjoyed this one. Like I had a
Yeah.
really good time with this movie.
Yeah.
I think Timothy Dalton is like a great version of Bond and like a really
Mhm.
interesting. And there's also this element of like, because I know Timothy Dalton from these other things,
Yeah.
I'm already predisposed to like him more
Mhm.
than I did with Roger Moore or something like that. Um, like I like him in Chuck, I like him in Hot Fuzz, I like him in Doctor Who. So like seeing him here with this much less like tongue in cheeky,
Mhm.
Bond, is a lot of fun. I like his relationship with Kara.
Yeah.
I
I'm glad you said
like
that too.
I like that it's built throughout the course of the movie, and it's not just like he rushes into banging her or anything like that. Like I like that element of it. I like his like. There's also like the it's almost like picking and choosing, and like the movie is benefiting from like my relationship to other roles that other characters did, but like the Pushkin role, John Rhys Davies coming in
Mhm.
kind of doing a Salah thing from Indiana Jones. Like you have a
Mhm.
little bit of like this shared history between him and Bond that like isn't directly and like isn't crazily explicit or whatever in this,
Mhm.
but like it's established enough, and John Rhys Davies is a fun enough like performer
Yeah.
that like I enjoy their thing, and I can very clearly see that they're setting up, that they're faking his death to do this, and so that pays off, I think, in a fun way.
Mhm.
um there was a weird bit of seeing Joe Don Baker come in and be like, wait, aren't you the guy that is going to
Jack
like that I
Wade.
am going to
Yeah.
see in Goldeneye? Like I
Yeah.
remember you, the actor. So I was like, is he playing the same character? I looked at like I kind of paused the movie a little bit to look that up and be like, oh no, he's playing a bad guy in this one, and then he's going to come
Mhm.
back and play an ally in a couple movies from now. That's an interesting thing, but okay. Um, uh, I want to give a special shout out, and this was the one note I actually took on the movie. Shout out to the agent at the safe house that actually like holds his own in the kitchen fight. Like
Yeah.
we never see that in these movies. We never
Mhm.
see other people being competent. It's always like complete incompetence or Bond. And so
Mhm.
seeing like another agent being able to like hold his own for as long as he does and like manage all the other stuff like it almost feels like that was originally choreographed to be a fight with Bond. um and Timothy Dalton couldn't do it or something like that, and so like it's just this random guy that nobody's gonna like know or care about. But I loved that like this
Mhm.
like incredibly competent fight happens with our big bad quiet henchman character and another guy, and showing that like oh, Bond's not alone in being a competent agent at
Yeah.
MI6. Like the other guy still ends up getting the upper hand, but like there were a number of factors at play there. But the fact that like he held his own as long as he did, I was like, that's like a breath of fresh air for this
Yeah.
series as well, and just like a surprising directorial choice, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I had a good time.
Yeah, I am so glad you said that. I also didn't know what to expect, right? Like I wanted to enjoy this one, right? As someone who's always kind of liked it but maybe never loved it. And same for like my friends on Timothy Dalton. I've been like, he's good, but like I don't ever love him. I enjoyed this movie so much. Yeah, I was so happy with it today. I think that whole like manor compound sequence I thought was really cool, right? Like I just thought it was just so neat to see all the different agents there, right? And see like, yeah, like they're gonna be at a secure base, obviously. And yeah, that fight in the kitchen has always been one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I think it's like such a great, like kind of brutal fight between like the random agent and, the henchman. It works so well. I think the milk bottle throwing thing is like always not like hilarious to me in like the best way. And I love the like musical theme almost. It's always like following him around. You can always hear him like about to strangle someone. Like I think it's used to like such great effect. Yeah, that whole sequence is great. I think Living Daylights has like probably one of the cooler pre-title sequences as well, with like the training mission gone wrong. Like
Mhm.
I always think it's, and I just like the idea of like Bond interacting with other double O agents and like all of them going on a mission together, right? And like seeing what that's like, and you know the varying degrees of success they have. I always really enjoyed. Um, yeah, like I also agree that Bond and Car's relationship is really good, right? Like I at a certain point in time watching this today, I began to kind of compare it to like Spy Who Loved Me and On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and like those kind of movies where like this isn't the you know super fast paced like high speed movie of like a Goldfinger or a Live and Let Die. It is much more of like a like slower great burn like those other two movies are, or like From Russia with Love. And I think it fits so well in that canon while doing things better than certainly better than On Her Majesty's Secret Service, just by the fact that it has Timothy Dalton, not George Lazenby. But even in terms of having like a strong female character to like bounce off of Bond with, right? Like I think their dynamic is so interesting, and I'm like so compelled to watch that relationship grow and have its struggles and bounce back and forth. And I also think that like Kara and Bond's dynamic, I think deliberately because of what Timothy Dalton's trying to do, feels different than anything Roger Moore did, right? Like even Bond and Anya never felt like, oh, they could like end up together after this, right? Whereas here it's like much more of like, oh, like this feels like an actual genuine strong bond has been made here between these two characters, right? And I think Dalton is so good in this movie, right? Like I don't even know if I can give him enough credit. Like I think it's a fantastic performance as a James Bond actor. Like easily one of my favorite in the series now, because I think he just gives so much like humanity and depth to the role in just his eyes alone, right? Like I think Timothy Dalton has such expressive eyes, and the disdain he has for Saunders and like his by the book like following kind of thing, even like the stuff Im's orders, right? Like I hope he fires me kind of thing, right? Like he plays it as such a great, almost like burnt out Bond who's been doing this for too long almost, and isn't gonna kill some random girl who can't even hold a rifle right. And he's developed his own moral code that he follows, and authority and kind of the establishment can kind of be damned if they don't agree with it, which we'll see pay off even more in the next movie. But like it all feels so true to like this like late 80s, late era Cold War kind of Bond that you would probably have, right? Like this feels much more true to what a British secret agent would be than anything Roger Moore did, right? And is still fun and can still be enjoyable and can still be kind of emotional in ways that I think Roger Moore mostly just didn't seem to care to do, except for like a few films, right? Like For Yours Only, he went, I think, in a much more emotional direction at times, but like for the most part, not. And it's so refreshing, right? Like it is hard to judge, like, is this just because it is such a high note after the 7 movies we kind of run through or not? But this is how people in the cinema would have watched it, right? Is like, well, that's a jarring change, right? Like, I don't know if the series is ever gonna tonally shift as much as it does here, right? Because I think the transition from Pierce Brosnan to Daniel Craig is a much smoother one than it was from Roger Moore to Timothy Dalton. Yeah, it's great. I think, you know,
I mean,
they're great.
I don't know if I don't know if I actually agree with it, because like Pierce Brosnan definitely like leans into the campiness in some of his stuff versus like the like this is a Bourne inspired era of Bond, and we're gonna be gritty, and it's gonna be like, it's like, you know, stark dark, like black and white opening, like it, that is a jarring shift in like in reinventing the Bond character. For especially because I think that's also going to be like the first new Bond that we get after Austin Powers has completely lampooned and torn apart the character. So like the 1-2 punch of Pierce Brosnan and Austin Powers out there existing like makes, I think, the Daniel Craig jump a significantly like more brutal turn comparatively. Like he's strapped naked to a chair at one point in the movie in Casino Royale. So like he's going through some stuff, but I think like this is probably another like wild shift. Absolutely.
And I think, you know, it will come as no surprise that Daniel Craig pulled a lot of inspiration from Timothy Dalton's Bond, right? Connery and Dalton's Bonds in particular were the two that Daniel Craig kind of took inspiration from, who I think are the two kind of most brutish Bonds. And I think you see that a lot when we'll get to Daniel Craig's movies. Like, I think Timothy Dalton's great here. I think this movie's got really great action scenes too, right? Like, I really like the Aston Martin, like, car chase through, like, Czechoslovakia that takes you all the way through Austria with him sliding down in a cello case. Like, that whole sequence is great and, like, has so many great, like, Bond continuously kind of improvising things. I think the, like, pipeline to the west is a great, like, little gag too. Like, I think it is such a solid film, like, all the way through. There's so many kind of great moments that I really enjoyed in the movie. Like, for me, the downbeats of the movie, the kind of only, like, critiques I'd have are probably just, like, I think the last act is maybe a little long. Once they get to Afghanistan, I think it gets a little wobbly just because we have to kind of, like, knock off so many people to get to the end. It's another one that I think is also plagued by having two villains for no real discernible reason. Like, I don't know if we needed both, you know, Koskov and Whitaker. Especially because, like, Bond and Whitaker literally have one scene in the movie, and it's the ending of the movie. That's their only scene together, right? And so, like, I don't know if both those characters are needed necessarily, but, like, they're both given super fun performances in it. They're both very larger than life characters, so, like, I enjoy them.
Yeah, it's also I think a lot of the Afghanistan action in a more modern movie would be tightened up a lot, especially like like you have a direct parallel if you go see the Uncharted movie right now of the, like, hanging out of a cargo plane, you know, on a thing.
For Uncharted 3 probably, right?
Exactly. It's like that sequence goes on so long here that I think, like, they could have cut probably that at least in half and not really lost anything on it. But, you know, for the sake of, you know, a 1987 audience, seeing Bond hanging out of a cargo plane, seeing a new Bond hanging out of a cargo plane and stuff over the mountainside and stuff, you know, that's there's certainly still, like, a spectacle to that, I think. That just it just seems slower for our sensibilities, and the fact that comes after a significantly long, you know, runway sequence and fight and like, you know, the Mujahideen kind of, like, facing down with the Russian forces or whatever, like that was a whole. I was not expecting, like, the turn to Afghanistan in this movie, and it gave two, I think, really cool and interesting things. One was, I liked Kara up through this point, and I found myself kind of thinking back on our conversation from last week that I typically don't like the damsel in distress allies that Bond kind of picks up in the movies. And so like I felt almost justified when she takes agency and says like we have to go after him, and kind of and like basically
grabs
like
the gun and goes,
leads the charge to like and she, you know, she's Russian, so I'm sure she's had some sort of training or whatever, but she like it's established that she's not really this. She is the cello person. That's her real self. But like the fact that she, you know, was called to action to do that, I thought was like a really great moment and sequence for her. And then I also loved they free this, you know, to us unknown random, you know, guy who's just in prison with them when they break out themselves, and then that ends up being a like, you know, a weird,
a literal
kind
lifesaver.
of exactly like the way that pays off with the in the Mujahideen kind of like sequence of Afghanistan. Also interesting. I think also a very weird thing now, like watching in 2022, having gone through, you know, everything of the last 30 years of Afghanistan conflicts and whatnot. Like one of the first reviews I saw on IMDb or whatever was like Bond in the future Taliban or whatever. I'm like, no, that's not. I think that's a very rudimentary understanding of Afghani politics. Like these are the guys
and the Afghan-Russian war
would eventually get overthrown by the Taliban or taken out by the Taliban. But these were just like freedom fighters that like wanted Russia out of Afghanistan kind of stuff at the time. And this is like the Charlie Wilson's war era of things.
That's a great pull. Yeah.
So yeah, it was like,
it's a great movie.
Just like, I think making that a setting for a modern Bond wouldn't really work, but like in the context of its time works, but audiences are dumb and don't necessarily know that it works in a post Bin Laden era.
I think, I think it is such a cool take on it too, because so often, both within this own series, but also just, I feel like Western, mainly Hollywood media in general, right? Like, we would have had Bond single-handedly fight the Russians, and just any sort of Afghan populace at all would have just been like incidental or not shown at all, really. And the fact that they are like such a big plot element of the third act, and they're shown as nuanced characters, right? Like one of the commanders is like an asshole treating his troops badly, another one is an Oxford educated man, right? Like there is, you know, this diversity of opinion and thought and personality within them, like there would be in any sort of group of fighters fighting for their freedom. And I love that so much. And I think Cameron is such a fun character, right? Like I'd have loved to have seen him and Bond just have more adventures together, because I like their dynamic, because I think they each are people who can be ruthless when they have to be, right? Like Cameron he likes Bond, but is also content to just kind of let him go off on his own if that's what needs to be done, right? Or like, I can't give you these things because I need them to fight the war, right? And like, they're each, I think, calculated people who take calculated risks, right? And if the odds aren't in the favor, they won't do it. And so I like that dynamic a lot between Bond and Cameron. And Kara obviously is just not a part of that world. And so to see her kind of be like the moral compass in a lot of ways for both characters is really interesting. I do want to give a shout out to the prison fight scene, which is like, for whatever reason, it's like one of those things that like got stuck in my brain when I was a kid, and is like always the scene I think of first in this movie is like Bond fighting the prison guards and like almost getting his face stabbed and like slamming the door. Like it's a great sequence, and it's got the great payoff for the like wolf call, which in it of itself is like one of my favorite recurring like things in the movie. It's like a very brutal, quick fight scene that feels very Connery-esque to me, which I enjoy. Yeah, it's a great fight. And then Cameron just in the corner, just like hooting and hollering, is awesome stuff. Yeah, like those are the elements I like, right? Is like when they do that and take their time in the first half of Afghanistan. The final battle sequence, is probably definitely too long. They could have cut that in half, like you said. But the build up to it, I think, is actually really good. And like the introduction of like how the diamonds can figure out and everything, and like the opium trade, and you know, Koskov ultimately just caring about money.
Yeah.
It's a good payoff, I think, to those kind of character arcs.
Yeah, even that, like, as going back, you know, even to the beginning, like, I loved, like, the duplicitous nature of Georgie that ends up like,
Yeah.
when he's introduced and you think he is just kind of a defecting general or whatever, and then he's, he's taken back and MI6 is made to look incredibly stupid or whatever. But like
Yeah.
when you find out that that was the plan all along, like that he was like faking the defection,
Yep.
I was like, oh, that adds an extra great layer to this character, and he's playing both sides and effectively playing both sides. Like he has Pushkin convinced, on the one hand, and he tricks MI6 into thinking Pushkin has turned and does have this, evil plan. And so I thought like he ends up being like wildly effective for someone who is like who's introduced in almost a cartoonish manner in like his over effusive love for Bond and reverence and whatnot. The him discussing the Fogwa with Bond at the safe house or whatever. Like you don't realize he's playing this character up for everybody until after the fact. But then it's also just a heightened version of who he is. He's just a guy who wants money and like doesn't really have a strong allegiance to the East. He's just kind of like, this will get me more money, so I'm going to partner up with this arms dealer and make some extra money on the side.
One of my favorite things about him too is actually in the beginning when you are still thinking he's just trying to defect, right? And it's a scene where he like escapes from the window and then like runs in front of the car. You can just hear Saunders go like, what is he waiting for? And what he's waiting for is for Kara to pop out because he wants to kill her, right? Like as Bond will say later on, like he wants to make sure that she gets shot before he runs any further, because otherwise if she lives, the KGB and Pushkin can get information out of her, right? So like even there, like he's doing everything with such a like intent of purpose, and like that whole dynamic with Kara and him, and obviously he didn't give a damn about her. And she like, I think deep down knew that, but like wanted to believe. And so I think it makes their kind of connection, and like you would think their connection be so much more emotional and sweet for her than it is, but like it is almost immediately her just being like, oh, this isn't the real thing, because like I had it with James, right? And like she like understands and like almost immediately is like working against him, and then he ditches her to like the prison guards. I like his dynamic with so many of the characters, because he does present as such a buffoonish character, but it is also like a really smart mask, because it's just a great way for people to underestimate you, right? And he uses it to great effect, right? Like he's another villain who got incredibly close to achieving his plan, if not for like a few bad strokes of luck, right? Like he does exactly what I wanted to do otherwise. And even there, like even in that, like his plan goes awry and he still manages to escape and go to Whitaker's place. And so everything would have been great there, if Carr just hadn't mentioned Whitaker, right? Like Bond would have never known that, and he would have gotten away with Whitaker still. Like his plan went really successfully in a lot of ways, and it shows, I think, how great of a villain he is. Whitaker is a bit more just like, I like war criminals, and it's like, all right, cool, let's go that route, I guess. And he plays it in a very like fun, over the top way too, which I enjoy his kind of few scenes in. And he's like, because Whitaker is technically like the big bad, right? Like everyone's working for him in this movie, but like he is such a strange main villain in a lot of ways, because like he doesn't interact with Bond, and there's like layers of henchmen, and like he's great, and his plan is just like, I want to be rich, basically.
Yeah, he's like the money man. I still see like Georgie as like the real big bad, and he's just like, and Georgie's just like using Whitaker's money to do it effectively.
Yeah.
And Whitaker thinks he's going to get more money from this whole thing. So, but yeah, he's just a fun kind of over the top extra element. There was definitely that sequence at the end of, okay, Bond has the overlong fight with Necros, takes Necros out. I'm like, oh, but we've still got a couple loose ends, and now we're going to go into that denouement thing. But at least again here, it's happening in the right order, where it's not, he took out the big bad and now he has to clean up with the henchmen. He took out the henchmen and now he has to clean up the big bad kind of situation.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about those kind of moments in the Bond series, and I think, like maybe I never really fully comprehended the ones I don't like for that reason, where like it gets the order wrong, right? Like why I think it works in something like Goldfinger, right? Because they take out Oddjob first and then do Goldfinger at the end, right? Versus, so many of the Roger Moore movies, like Live and Let Die, even, right? Where they take out Kananga and Mr. Big, and then you've got T, he had to fight, right? And like, I think the Moore movies, yeah, they just got the order wrong. Like, they would almost have like the main climax and be like, and here's a little bit of dessert for you. And it's like, yeah, but the main guy's dead. Like, I'm less invested in this plot now. Like, Bond is one kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like this one gets it right.
It'd be in Arkham Asylum if you took out the Joker and then you had to take out like a couple Titan baddies afterwards or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very topical. Someone who's literally just doing that right now. Yeah, like it's definitely, it's a really great point to make, right? And we'll see a similar thing next week as well. Of like, they get the order right, which I enjoy. Yeah, like, one thing I do want to give a shout out to is, it's crazy to me going through these movies again, because I never really thought about it in like, in a void, but like, there aren't a ton of the Bond movies that are like ultimately Cold War centric. Like, that is maybe one of the like bigger like myth or like half truths of the series. It's not actually really that much of a Cold War story. There were like one or two in the Connery era, and then like one or two in the Moore era. But like, even the Moore ones, really only Octopussy is, right? Because like, The Spy Who Loved Me is about that, but like, it's about them working together. So it's not like a Cold War thriller. And like, this one leans more into like those Cold War espionage thriller moments, especially in the first act. And I loved it. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I would have loved just more of them in Czechoslovakia and trying to like deal with like defectors and getting them across the border, and like Bond having to deal with like the Russian KGB agents here, right? Like, all that stuff I thought was so well done and so cool, and a great like Bond version of like, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and that I really dug it, right? Like, it also has one of my favorite like gags in the movie, which is Kara being replaced by a cello case, and the just KGB agent just like watching it for forever, and then Bond and Kara having to go get her actual cello. I thought it was another great gag. Like, yeah, like, I don't know, there's so much to like about this movie, and so much of it works on so many levels that, yeah, it is just such a refreshing Bond movie to watch after some of the last few ones.
I also, on that note, and kind of tying back to, I think, some of the other Kara stuff earlier, like, I like that Bond keeps his guard up with Kara, not knowing what she knows, and so he kind of like poses as somebody else, but like in a way that makes all of the wild stuff that he knows or can do believable. And that like keeping secrets ends up like leading to, that temporary downfall of she drugs him because she reached out, got a hold of Georgie, and basically like Georgie's like says, don't trust that man you're with. And she believes him instead of Bond, but then like immediately regrets it as soon as Bond kind of like comes clean and says like, I'm the one who did this to you because you like didn't deserve to die, kind of thing. So yeah, it was just another great layer to their relationship and dynamic. And so like immediately she realizes she's made a mistake on the plane. She does what she can to help him kind of, and they escape and whatnot. And so, yeah, just, lots of, or they not escape, but they're immediately back on the same page of things.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. It's really great. Trevor, any other favorite moments from the film before you go on to the next few sections here?
It's another one we also, like, you mentioned it a little bit, but I did want to highlight, like, I really enjoyed the Rock of Gibraltar sequence. In the, like, I would have enjoyed it even if it had just been like the training exercise portion. But when it is like, oh, something has gone awry, there, like somebody, like, a bad guy has like intervened here and is, running amok in this, and Bond is the only one that like catches on and is able to manage and do something about it, was another, like, it was a great twist on like what could have been a cool idea in and of itself of like, you've been infiltrated and it's almost a war games kind of thing, and they're we're gonna be shooting each other with paint or whatever, and when it is like the guy gets shot with paint and then just immediately kills like the guard and then like cuts one of the agents loose, it's like, oh, like things just got real, and Bond is able to see enough of it to piece that together and know that like something real just went down. And it makes him like it makes him competent out the gate to kind of set that up.
It's a great introduction to the new Bond.
The one little thing that I think feels out of place with the rest of the movie is kind of the closer or the stinger of that tag of like him landing on the boat with the the rich lady who's like, I just need to meet a man or whatever, but all these are boys or like that kind of stereotypical thing, and Bond just kind of lands and then immediately like it's like, okay, well they're gonna bang it out, I guess.
This is like, even there though, I like, like that seems like, okay, sure, whatever, but like I like it just because of like Dalton goes about it in a manner that is not Moore-esque, right? Like he grabs the phone very quickly and is like, I have to do this, right? And even like the way he says James Bond is so Daniel Craig to me. He just like spits it out and is on to the next thing. Like he doesn't savor that line at all. Like he just says it and is boom, let's go, right? And like I love how he just like James Bond kind of thing. And like for the Rock of Gibraltar stuff too, like thinking about it more, us talking about it, I think it is sort of a cool like prototype version of what the Archangel sequence from GoldenEye is going to be in a lot of ways too. Like getting Bond working with another 00 agent on this mission in the pre-title sequence, it's like a cool to see Bond working with other 00s. And we don't really get a lot of it in the series, but they're always some of my favorite moments. And I would just, I think, love in a future Bond movie just to see like, like here's them just on a training exercise and like going about their thing and doing a war games kind of strategy. Like that's a really cool idea for a pre-credit sequence.
As dumb as it is to have M's desk out there on the plane and the cargo doors and he's got
papers.
He's so annoyed that papers are flying around. What the hell did you think was going to happen, dummy? There was a lot of like this definitely gave me, you mentioning GoldenEye, like this had a lot of GoldenEye flavor for me, and I mean Kara I think is also like a prototype for what will become Natasha, right? Is it Natasha? That seems right. Natalia. There you go. Of like not like really a part of this world, but gets swept up into it and like manages to hold their own in the world as well. So yeah, lots of like. Yeah, I just really like this one. I had a good time with this one.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because I actually, when I got to watch it, was like, I really do think that Timothy Dalton's 2 and Pierce Brosnan's first, which is GoldenEye, obviously, do form like this interesting kind of trio of films that are all pretty thematically similar, right? Because like GoldenEye is very serious in a lot of ways. Like it deals with very serious subjects and like themes, and like it also kind of, I think, is the first Bond movie, maybe with these Timothy Dalton 2, to kind of like really pick at like the Bond mythology in interesting ways. And so like I actually think they all flow together really well. And so it is interesting for you to also kind of pick up on that, like this is very similar to GoldenEye, because I also think that and this kind of laid some seeds that will really sprout, I think, even stronger for GoldenEye. Yeah, it is great. I was so happy that I enjoyed it. Again, it was like these are the two that I was the most like, I hope I like. And the fact that I like this one makes me so confident for next week, because that was the one that I always liked more as a kid. So yeah, it's a ton of fun. It's great. Let's hop right on into kind of the wrap-up sections here. Trevor, for Villains Corner, we'll do both Whitaker and Koskov. Where do you rank the villains of The Living Daylights?
I mean, like Whitaker's like fun. So I kind of want to put him in like maybe Jaws and Odd Job territory.
Yeah, I'm totally connected with that.
Like,
I think Whitaker is the most, if there's like the villain who's having the most fun with it, in the spirit of like Christopher Walken or like Charles Gray as like Blofeld 3.0, right? Like they would just seem like they're having fun with it. Are they great villains? I don't know, but they're having a blast with it, and like it's always fun to watch him. Like I love that kind of spirit of his character.
Yeah, like he's just like, and that actor, just a joyous guy. Like he fits much better as like the next character he'll come back as compared to this. But yeah, he is the like J.W. Pepper character done right.
Done right. That's a great point, Trevor. Holy shit, I'm gonna steal that for my review. That's a great thing.
So yeah, like I really enjoyed him. He was a lot of fun. I also like, we don't need to rank him, but I do want to give a shout out to Necros as you like running around with the headphones on and using those headphones as garrote wire to kill the milkman and other people and stuff, and that like that just becoming almost his trademark thing, and like him having the balloons and like just being like, he was in on the gag too. This isn't the camp levels of like Diamonds Are Forever, but he's making the same movie that he is assigned to as like Wint and Kid were in Diamonds Are Forever. Like he's hitting that note very well.
He's easily probably the big bad Red Grant Euro baddie that I think of the most, who like really stands out on his own. That isn't just like, that's Hans from Fear Island, where it's like, that's just a generic European blonde guy. Where this one, like, he stands on his own as like a really great henchman in his own right, who has great kills, and great moments. Yeah. Great shout out.
And then as for what's his name? Koskov, Georgie. Like, honestly, great. I liked him better than Goldfinger. Like,
ooh,
like
hot take.
Because again, I
love it here.
I mean, just going through what we talked about, like I thought, like I was convinced he was just kind of like a bumbling general that is defecting or whatever, and has this, critical intelligence. And so like when the movie and he kind of twist that on their head, and like there was more at play, I was along for the ride, and like I appreciated that, and it made me start kind of contextualizing what he had done and how he'd kind of set things up for the dominoes to fall later on. And so like I really liked that, he's not out there to take over the world or whatever. He is just like in it for the money, and doesn't have a problem pitting two world superpowers at the height of the Cold War against one another to make bank on that. And so I really liked him. I thought performance was great, I think, and I think like his motivations and whatnot were all just really fun in a way that, like, Goldfinger also great, but I think just for like the eras that these movies take place in, I just don't I'm not going to be as connected to the, what would that have been, like early 70s for Goldfinger kind of performance.
1964.
God, he was that.
It was the third one.
It was still that early. Jesus. So like that, like I liked Georgie more than I liked Goldfinger, I guess. Like Goldfinger, I like obviously still has a little bit more iconic moments and stuff, and like, no, I expect you to die, and like the plan not being about nuking, but nuking the gold supply, not about stealing the gold, but nuking the gold supply. Like, great plot, but like Georgie, I just liked as a just liked him more. And
that's totally legitimate. That's totally legitimate. I think I'm so happy that we each like this one so much, which is sort of a surprise. It was one I was hoping that we would like, but I'm glad we both did. I don't hate your explanation, right? Like, I like Goldfinger more, but like I think he's also really great, and I think he's got a lot of similarities with Goldfinger too, right? In terms of just like having a plan that's actually about something completely different, right? Like being a character you think is one thing, that's something else. Like they're both characters who, like I mentioned earlier, are very smart, are very resourceful, and largely achieve their plan. Like Goldfinger's plan went off incredibly well. If not for like, he was 7 seconds away from his plan going off without a hitch, right? And he also escapes, and like Koskov here, like his plan goes off really well, except for like at the very end, and he also escapes, right? Like they each are very smart villains who don't get thwarted early on or anything like that. Like I think they're actually like pretty good companions as a 1 and 2.
He's also like he is was it Christados? He is Christados done well.
Oh yeah, that's a great shout out. You're giving great Bond analogies. Yeah, like that's a great thing. Yeah, and also because the problem with Ari Christados from Fear Is Only is that after his reveal that he's a villain, he basically like vanishes from that movie for some reason. Like they like just like have him disappear for essentially the entire rest of the film except for one scene, and it's like they don't waste Koskov here. Like once he's revealed to be a bad guy, like they use him again and again and again. He's got great moments with everyone. He's got great chemistry with everyone. Like for me, I would have him second, but like I think there's literally no bad spot to put him. He's great. He's a fun villain. He's got great chemistry with everyone.
Yeah,
and it was so much fun to see here because like now when we get to the end of this podcast, and I'll do my like written ranking of, you know, all the different Bond villains, he's easily gonna be probably my top 10 and really high on that list. Like he's so much fun.
I think like I'm fine putting him at number 2, and I think that's also a testament to like I don't know this actor at all. I don't know like versus like a lot of Max Zorin charm, you know, comes off of the back of Christopher Walken and like my enjoyment of Christopher Walken
or Christopher Lee for Scaramanga.
Exactly, actually. Yeah. And so like the fact that this guy, who I don't know from Adam, you know, like just jumps up here to near the top of the list.
He's so good.
Is a testament to like his role in this film, I think.
I totally agree. I think he's absolutely great. I'm very excited to see where he kind of goes at the end of the show. Trevor, that takes us to those musical moments. What did you think of the music of Living Daylights from Aha?
There's another one, like when that came up I was like, oh, it's the Take On Me guys. Yeah, I guess I can kind of hear that. This is another, like, I don't have a strong affinity for music of the 80s, clearly, given that I didn't care much about the last one. This one is like
Duran Duran.
It's okay. Yeah, it like
I don't know, man. I really like it. I think this leans more into being an 80s movie in a lot of ways than A View to a Kill did.
I will say that. Yeah, there were a couple times I meant to bring it up last week where while we are effectively in the 80s, there were definitely moments in last week's movie that felt like Bond was still caught in the 70s, whereas this one does like feel full, like it's in the 80s. It knows the kinds of movies it's up against now and kind of the era of the 80s. It's just like I'm just not the music
You're not
guy.
an 80s music
and
fan.
and the I will still sing Take On Me very easily as an Aha song. Well over, like, this is another one I'd never heard before, and you know, when Take On Me is your other, you know, hit, that's to be expected. But like, yeah, this one, it was like, it was fine. It just didn't do much.
I like it a lot. I think John Barry does great stuff with the score in this movie in particular, like the recurring motifs for characters, music a lot. I like, and like the utilization of the Bond theme, I think is really like good in this movie. And yeah, like it feels like a fun musical score. It feels like an 80s movie. I like it. Where did I put last week's?
I put last week View to a Kill. That was
so put like fourth. I think this is better than View to a Kill. All is what I will say.
Sure.
Both as a movie and music.
I definitely like I will say, like, when there's an element of this that like I never would have heard the song, because before we started doing this podcast, I would not have been able to tell you that The Living Daylights was a Bond movie. Like, if you told me The Living Daylights was a movie, I would be like, is that like a zombie thing? You know, thinking like The Living Dead, I guess. So
romantic
like
movie starring Jack
Nicholson. So like and there was that moment, you know, Bond saying like I must have scared the living
in on his face.
I must have scared the living daylights out of her. I was like, oh, he said the thing. I was like,
credits.
Okay, at least like in the context of a sentence, the living daylights makes sense. But just as the title, I'm just like, that is not a thing people say. Like, people don't refer to the living daylight as just like a thing. It is only in the context of scaring the living daylights out of somebody. So it still feels weird, and having that be your song and your title theme or whatever. It's like, okay, sure.
I didn't put in the trivia fact, but it definitely should have been in it in hindsight. This is the last Bond movie to be based even remotely off of an Ian Fleming, either a novel or short story, until Casino Royale. So we are moving full bore into the era of like, I hope you like the word die or live. That's a lot of the next titles. Like, we're really leaning into that thing, right? And so
it's like Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts on Chaos and Heart.
Right, exactly, right. And we're gonna get to the era of like Quantum of Solace, whatever the fuck that means, right? And so like we're getting to kind of like sillier titles a little bit. And I think The Living Daylights is definitely part of that group, but probably still the one that is at least like an actual sane somewhat versus some of the other ones. In terms of the Qlab gadgets, we had a lot. Roger Moore got to leave, so we got to have a fun Qlab Gadgets section here. From the Aston Martin having just been packed full of goodies and gadgets again in a way we haven't seen since the Lotus, really, from Spy Who Loved Me. And it's just so nice to have, an Aston Martin in a Bond movie. To obviously little keychain that can pick locks, smoke gas, blow up shit. Which I always love the great gag of him putting it on Q's mask and then getting ready to whistle.
Mm-hmm.
The ghetto blaster, obviously, too. Or my personal single favorite gadget in the entire movie, the couch. That Q has the dude sit on just so it folds and eats him so that he can sit on. Is never not funny to me. I just love Desmond Llewellyn's piece of acting in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
It is very, very good. There are a lot of good gadgets shown off in The Living Daylights, I think.
That just reminded me, one of the other trivia things I saw was that for the Ghetto Blaster, which again, that like Ghetto Blaster, absolutely this
Beatles earmuff moment, yeah.
Beatles earmuff moment. This doesn't need to be in this movie. But I was reading in the trivia that Prince Charles was the one who basically set off the pyrotechnic for that visit. He was visiting the set with Princess Diana at the time.
That's really cool. That's a great
and they were like, do you want to, we're about to film this shot where this character is going to shoot a rocket out of a boombox. Do you want to trigger the explosive kind of thing? And so yeah, they let Charles do it. Nice. And in that same set visit, there's apparently a famous image or a famous video of Princess Diana smashing a sugar glass bottle over Prince Charles's head. Fun little prop kind of shenaniganry. It's aw. And then the paparazzi just completely fucked up that woman's life.
Mm-hmm.
Sad.
All true. Trevor, where do you rank The Living Daylights? What do you grade this movie? What do you rank it?
This is my new number one.
Do it. I'm here for it.
Yeah,
I love it.
I was thinking about that last night.
Great.
I was like, it's easily better than anything that Moore did. I like it easily better than any of that stuff. And so I was like, is this where do I put this against Goldfinger? And yeah, I just had more fun. I think Goldfinger suffers from its age and dated, aspects of that movie. Not the least of which is having a fucking one of your main characters named Pussy Galore. But yeah, it's just I think Timothy Dalton is the breath of fresh air that I needed after 7 weeks of Roger Moore. Mm-hmm. And as we've passed the halfway point of this series and the last few weeks especially, I've been I do not like Bond. This one made me like Bond again, and this is the first one. I mentioned last week. Also, I think maybe after we'd stop recording or whatever. But I have zero interest in watching any of these other movies again. But this is the first one I was I would sit down and watch that one again. I had a good time with that one. That was a fun, good movie. So yeah, shout out to The Living Daylights being my new number one.
Love that. I love it. That makes me so happy to hear. I also think it's great. Yeah, I mean, this gets an A for me. A or A minus. It's great, I think. I do like Goldfinger more. But I am a sucker for a Sean Connery movie, and I think it's his best. I probably would put it below Live and Let Die. That's sort of where I'm at. Those are my two favorite we've done so far. And then honestly, I've been thinking since I watched it a few hours ago, where does it fall in terms of that From Russia with Love, Spy Who Loved Me, On Her Majesty's Secret Service kind of range. It's unquestionably a great movie. Those kind of things are in terms of my tiers of bad, okay, good, and great. I sort of want to get what's the point of hosting your own James Bond podcast if you can't get a little blasphemous on it? I sort of want to be I liked this more than The Spy Who Loved Me, right? I know The Spy Who Loved Me is such an important Bond movie, and I get that, but it's also been one that I've always really liked but never loved. I really enjoyed so much of this movie. I thought it was so much fun. It is one of those moments where I got to watch it and was that was great. And I had a big smile plastered on my face. And yes, like, do I like it more or less than From Russia with Love? And it's like, any given Sunday, but like right now when we're doing this podcast, like, why not? Why not put it as my third favorite Bond movie? Because I think it's great. I really do. I think it's so much fun. I think it gets so much right. I think this is probably my favorite James Bond performance since Roger in Live and Let Die. It's got a great set of villains. It feels both fun and also serious, and it nails that balance, I think, and it nails its tone. And Timothy Dalton is, it cannot be stressed and underlined enough, such a refreshing breath of fresh air after Roger Moore. Even if you like Roger Moore, I think you'd have to acknowledge it. Like, by the last like 3 or 4 of his movies, like, that is a guy who's running on fumes and also is maybe a little clocked out, right? And it's so nice to see an actor here who very much gives a damn and is given a great performance. And so, I will put this as my third favorite Bond movie. I think it's great. I'm so happy to see I liked it so much because it was never this high before. And I'm very happy to see it be one that I, watch again in the future. I think 11 Daylights is awesome. It's a really, really great movie that is going to get us started on a really good run of films, I think, as well. That takes us to the wrap up. Before we do that, let's run through our rankings because it's been a few weeks since we've done our kind of ranking recaps. For Trevor, we've got him going bottom to top with Fury's Only at the bottom, then Thunderball,
Boo,
then Moonraker, The Man with the Golden Gun, You Only Live Twice, Octopussy, Dr. No, and then A View to a Kill. Kind of rounded in the top half, we then have Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, From Russia with Love, Spy Who Loved Me, Goldfinger, and The Living Daylights as his new number 1. For myself, we've got me having the bottom being The Man with the Golden Gun, a truly bad movie. Moonraker next, then Diamonds Are Forever. For Your Eyes Only. Maybe I am a little too harsh on Diamonds Are Forever. Diamonds Are Forever was fun. You Only Live Twice, Octopussy, Thunderball, A View to a Kill. And then for my top half, we've got Dr. No, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, The Spy Who Loved Me, From Russia with Love, The Living Daylights, Live and Let Die, and Goldfinger. Our top fives, very similar.
You have Live and Let Die in there, and that one misses mine.
And you have On Her Majesty's Secret Service. That's like the only switch, I think.
Yeah.
But both are top 6 are pretty much just spot on, same. Both are great. I'm very excited for the last 10 movies we've got left here now. Taking us to the outro. Oh wait, actually, before we get to the outro, we'll do it again next. We'll do it next week. Actually, we'll do it next week. We'll save it.
Bond on Bond next week.
Bond on Bond for next week. Yeah, wrap up. Timothy Dalton spoiler is great. For the outro, then, if you like what you watched, you can go over to youtube.com/thatnudie where you should already be on this YouTube exclusive series.
So 2 things. One, we didn't really talk about the new Miss Moneypenny.
Carolyn Bliss. She's fine. That's why.
She's fine. I thought, like, I appreciate that at least they, like, played with the dynamic, given that it's now a vastly different dynamic than, a couple actors in their 60s playing the role who'd been playing it for many years and whatnot. So, like, I like that, and I like she had, like, the thirst for Bond of a young Lois Maxwell kind of thing. So I thought that was an interesting thing, but I appreciate that, like, Bond isn't really reciprocating as much.
Yeah.
Or like he maybe plays along with it, a little bit or whatever, but like he's not really leading her on in a way that sometimes I feel like Bond had previously. But then also the Felix Leiterness of the movie, your Felix watch.
John Terry.
I was surprised to see him pop back up, and then realizing, like, oh, John Terry, what have I seen this guy in? Oh, you're Jack's dad from Lost. Okay. Yep, that's the pull I've got for you. Like, a very weird that he's in there. Especially, I think, set up in that he's introduced through his, like, femme fatale agents. That's like he's almost going for, like, a Charlie's Angels vibe, which feels like in the wrong series, basically, here. As kind of his introduction. So that was, like, a weird a weird thing, I would say, but still worth, I think, mentioning as we've, routinely focused on Felix over this series.
I think that this is the single most forgettable Felix Leiter in the entire film series for me. And part of the issue is that, like, spoiler alert, Felix Leiter is a huge part of the next movie. And so, like, I think it's also just kind of, like, in the shadow of what's to come, where, like, Felix maybe has his biggest role in the next movie, versus this one where, like, he just, like, pops up randomly in, like, the second act and then disappears again until, like, the very end of the movie. He's, like, there again. But, like, I don't think it's any fault of John Terry's, but I think he gives a bland performance because they give him nothing to work with. He doesn't need to be, like, a fun Felix who gets to, like, work in the field of the Bond. He's just, like, in one scene, he's like, hey, I got these girls to bring you here. Here's some, exposition. And the other scene, it's like, hey, I'm watching from afar while you go do fun things. And so, like, it's just a weird Felix role to bring back after, like, him not being in a movie, since Live and Let Die, right? So, yeah, for, 15 years now, we haven't had Felix Leiter's side, and then all of a sudden we get him here, and it's like, all right, yeah, like, that's fine. I am very happy to report that they brought a different actor in for the next one, in classic Felix Leiter fashion. But, yeah, it's fine. I mean, this is maybe my least favorite Felix Leiter. Is the one that I always kind of talk about as, like, the one I enjoy the least, just because, like, it feels so whatever it happened.
Mm-hmm.
This or, like, Rick Van Nutter in Thunderball, who I think is just truly actually not a good actor. But
I mean, admittedly,
it's pretty bland. It's the most, like, milquetoast one, I think. I'm just like, all right, there he is.
The Jack Wade character we're going to get in a couple movies from now, I don't know why that's not Felix Leiter.
Yeah,
but, like,
well,
that...
I know why it's not Felix Leiter, but
okay.
Yes,
we will cover it in time then.
You'll cover it next week.
But, like, those actors and like that and Jeffrey Wright are, like, the only Felix Leiters worth mentioning, really. So that means, really, for me, Jeffrey Wright, when he eventually makes his entrance as Felix Leiter, is the only Felix Leiter worth remembering.
Yeah,
all of these others have just been kind of like, oh, that's right. I'm sure, like, if you'd given me, like, a list of all of the past movies, I'd be like, I couldn't tell you which ones had a Felix in them or not.
Sure. I think for me, like, Dr. No, that is a Felix Leiter movie just because of how great how I think charming that actor is, and obviously he'd go on to do Hawaii Five-O for 50 years. And then David Hedison, who's in Live and Let Die, and who will, spoiler, be in next week's movie as well as Felix Leiter, is, like, very distinctive. But yeah, I mean, Jeffrey Wright gets the most. He's one of two, technically the only one who gets, like, do, like, multiple movies as Felix. And B, Jeffrey Wright is just a phenomenal actor.
Mm-hmm.
And actually give that character, I think, his due. Yes, we were doing the outro. Yes, youtube.com/thatnerdysite. Like and subscribe to the video. Hit the little bell notification so you can get notified when a new video goes live, basically every single day of the week, Monday through Saturday, and sometimes 2 videos in a day. You can also go over to thatnerdysite.com, check out all the latest written content, reviews, features, podcasts going live over there, as well as the companion written piece to each one of these episodes. Otherwise, you can go find Trevor Starkey at Trevor J. Starkey on the internet. Trev, anything that you want to plug or shout out?
I'll give a shout out to this month, if you're watching this when this goes live, over on That D Plus Show is a Pixar-focused month, where we're diving into some of the most recent Pixar movies with movies like Turning Red and Luca, as well as some of the earliest, like A Bug's Life and Monsters, Inc. Come check out That D Plus Show, where we're talking about Pixar stuff here in April.
I encourage everyone to go do that. You can go find me at LeftyLogie, LoggyLoggy on the internet. I will give a shout out to that. I will be on some of those episodes because I am not watching A Bug's Life again. I did it last year. It is not good. That one's rough. That one is rough. But the other ones I will probably be on.
I'm sitting through 25 Bond movies for you. And you're such a whiny piece of shit that you can't sit through A Bug's Life for one of my podcasts. All right, I'm gonna store that away there somewhere, Logan.
But The other three are all great. I mean, I haven't seen Luca yet. I'm very excited for that one, actually. Monsters Inc. is great. I can watch that pretty much every day of the week. So go check out that. Go check out all the great That D Plus show. We also just went through a lot of great movies in March, including West Side Story and the first episode of Moon Knight to wrap up March. So you can go check out those, as those are also going to be live as well. I will also give a shout out to That Nerdy Site show. All the good stuff there. It's impossible to say what just happened because these are being recorded in advance, obviously. But I know that Cameron and Frank did an episode when we recorded this in our timeline. So go check out that fun conversation. And finally, you can go check out That News You Care About, which by the time you listen to this, either will have already celebrated its 100th episode or will be getting right close to its 100th episode, where we're going to be going through our favorite games of all time. And the episodes before that, we will have done our favorite games, characters, and ranking video game consoles. So go check out all those fun News You Care About episodes as well and celebrate 100 episodes on that show. Whew, deep breath. Finally, you can go check out That Nerdy Site at That Nerdy Site on the internet for all of our happenings all across the web. For myself, for Trev, for all of us here at That Bond Show, thank you for watching, and we will return with License to Kill.